When we launched the boat Friday evening, we put provisions and gear aboard wherever they would fit. I woke up early Saturday morning and watched the sunrise. We spent the night at a fuel dock just south of Whitehair Bridge. Our screen was very effective, keeping bugs out at night. When the fuel dock opened at 8, we bought fuel and headed up the river. Our first stop was Pontoon Island State Park, about 4 miles up from the bridge. We stopped just to take a look at the facilities because we planned on returning here on our way back. Between Pontoon Island State Park and Blue Springs State Park, the river has a lot of idle speed and minimum wake zones, which made for very pleasant cruising. This looks like a sailboat that's been converted for use as a power launch.
Say that again?
Well, if I have brought my manicure kit, I could have done it for my fingernail here. I could do the manicure here.
Lake Beresford is one of the many wide bodies of water the river runs through. Not everyone abides by the speed restrictions on the river. We passed several sailboats, apparently returning from a race on Lake Monroe. There were a lot of jet skis on the river, but they generally were not a problem. We anchored in Butcher's Bend so we could have lunch away from the motorboat wakes. We liked it so well we stayed for the night. This trawler yacht and this little pontoon houseboat were our neighbors Saturday night. Butcher's Bend was full of alligators. With the solar panel and the sun awning in place, Kermit was ready for cruising. As the sun set, we settled in for a quiet night at Butcher's Bend. Sunday morning, I tried to get an early start. The river was foggy, but I thought it would burn off pretty quickly. When we got into the main channel, the fog was much thicker than it had been at Butcher's Bend, so we returned to our anchorage and waited for conditions to clear. After a couple hours watching more alligators, we got underway and headed south toward Sanford. This marina is just before the highway bridges at the west end of Lake Monroe. This motorboat's engines wouldn't start, so I towed it to the Seminole County launch ramp on the southwest side of the river. Then we recrossed the river and docked at Lake Monroe Park on the Volusia County side. It was a very nice park with excellent launch ramps, and we took the opportunity to top off our water jug. This is a water hyacinth flower.
Yeah, I will.
Lake Monroe is about 5 miles long, 3.5 miles wide. The city of Sanford has an artificial harbor which houses 2 marinas. None of the facilities were open, though. A 2-mile run took us across the rest of the lake into the canal that rejoins the river. The land surrounding this stretch of the river is low and marshy. A small community of affluent homes sits on the outskirts of Sanford. We stopped at the Sanford Boatworks Marina to buy fuel. There were no other fuel stops between here and Lake Harney. Austin Bridge carries State Road 415. On this side of Lake Monroe, there are no channel markers. A family of great blue herons grazes by the riverbank. The buff-colored neck and breast marks this anhinga as a female. Monday morning, we were just about an hour away from Lake Harney, our turning point. Perhaps because the weekend was over and the river was less crowded, we began to see alligators on the shore from time to time. That's Lake Harney ahead. We took a quick look at it, then turned around and headed back down the river. We made a brief detour up Deep Creek, which goes through this cypress forest. You can see how low the water is from the water lines on the tree trunks. Black vultures were a common sight along the river. Here's another alligator easing into the water. This very long dock crosses normally flooded land between the cypress trees. See how far back from the river the house is. Rustic cabins of years gone by are being allowed to deteriorate. A bald eagle. New houses on the river are big and expensive. Lemon Bluff was another small settlement. Here's another bald eagle. Monday afternoon we had 20-knot westerly winds with gusts to 30 knots. Because of the wind, we took the awning down before we ventured out onto Lake Monroe. The wind kicked up a little chop in the river, and we had quite a bit of spray crossing Lake Monroe, but it wasn't a bad passage. As we approached the west shore of Lake Monroe, the water smoothed out quite a bit. Ospreys like to build their nests in dead trees, and a day beacon looks a lot like a dead tree to them. We ducked into Lake Monroe Park briefly and set up the awning and topped off our water jug. We made a brief stop at this marina where we got some hand towels. We had forgotten to bring ours along. We left the marina just in time to see an Amtrak train crossing the bridge. Thanks to the windbreak of the trees, we were able to turn the steering over to the autopilot. Back at Butcher's Bend, the captain prepares a gourmet supper.
What are we having tonight?
Corned beef hash and cream-style corn.
Good, I like that.
Corned beef hash. Some of these pans are of marginal size.
Yep.
There we go.
That looks good.
Looks a lot like dog food, doesn't it?
I'm not saying that. You're funny.
Low heat. Specialty of the house. Cream style sweet corn.
I'm so hungry.
And there's our happy diner with a big smile on her face, ready to chow down.
Sure, I'm so hungry.
Tuesday morning, we took it easy, reading, watching the alligators and birds, and getting off to a late start. We only planned to go as far as Hantoon Island State Park, just a couple hours away. The wind was much lighter than Monday, so we looked forward to an easy run. Anne called this alligator a lazy bum because he didn't move when we approached. We reached Hantoon Island State Park before noon. With Kermit secure at the dock, we took showers, rode the ferry across the river a couple times, and hiked down the Indian Shell Mound Nature Trail. We saw a lot of big trees broken and lying on the ground, evidence of the bad hurricane season 2 years ago. Without the dark wingtips, this dragonfly's wings would be invisible. Here are more trees which appear to have been broken off by strong winds.
That looks so healthy.
The shell mound was probably 30 feet higher than the surrounding terrain. You can clearly see the high percentage of shells mixed in with the soil. This big tree leans out from the edge of the mound. See how the base of it has built up a thick layer of wood like a big bicep to help hold that extra weight. Maybe this shot conveys the height of the shell mound a little better. On our way back, we followed a detour that took us to the Hantoon Dead River. When he moves, you can spot this limpkin moving through the brush, but when he stands still, he practically disappears. The Gemini catamaran is a very comfortable boat for this kind of cruising. When I was a boy, there were lots of fields in St. Petersburg that looked just like this. The builder of this kayak and his wife were carrying her kayak to their campsite, so I had a good opportunity to examine this one close up. This is a real bird, not a statue. Notice how his head stays motionless even as his body moves. Wednesday morning was another reading period. The morning was chilly. It made sense to stay under the blanket until the weather warmed up a bit. By this time, the cabin contents have gotten pretty well organized. The park's picnic area affords a nice view looking up the river.
Look at the barbecue thing over there.
The black vultures like to hang out here when the weekend crowds have gone. Who knows, there might be something yummy stuck to this barbecue grill. This looks like a brewer's or a rusty blackbird. This is a spatterdonk or cow lily flower. The tiller split and we had to effect emergency repairs with some line. As we headed downstream, we passed a group of wood storks foraging on the bank. Whitehair Bridge and Edstone Park are behind us. Just north of the park, we passed this little marina. That was the last developed area until Astor. With the Lake Woodruff National Wildlife Refuge on the right and the Ocala National Forest on the left, this stretch of the river is pretty safe from development. A red-winged blackbird guarded the entrance to Revolving Bend. Revolving Bend has 4 secondary channels which loop around 3 small islands away from the main channel. The St. Johns River has lots of small lakes alongside the main channel. An important piece of equipment failed. Anne is trying to repair our fly swatter by tying it together with a long strand of her hair. We are coming into Astor, a small town just south of Lake George. There's a nice-looking public boat ramp. This is a boat engine repair shop. State Road 40 runs over Astor Bridge. The Blackwater Inn is one of several riverfront restaurants. This water taxi carries passengers from place to place around Astor. Blair's Jungle Den is a restaurant and fuel dock. Since all the fuel docks were closed, this fellow gave me a ride to buy gas. The bugs just loved our anchor light. Thursday morning began with a little housekeeping. Wakes from motorboats that don't slow down are annoying, but if the boats are small enough, they're not dangerous. We headed into Revolving Bend for lunch and got to watch a group of limpkins while we waited.
Beautiful.
This one has brought up a shell from the bottom.
The one from the water just got up.
After lunch, we had just a half-hour ride back to Edstone Park. We got the boat back on the trailer and ready for the highway. The drive home took about 4 hours, and we made it before dark.